Well, good afternoon and welcome to this Monday, May 31st edition of Referee Corner here on IdleStats.com. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and I'm joined by three lovely ladies who are well involved in the sport of football. Diane Ferrara James, Talisha Anton, and Odette Hamilton. We're going to get to their what they do in the sport to kind of keep it going. First of all, I'm going to start with you, Diane, because last time we spoke, there were some things getting ready to go on in your kind of neck of the woods of what you do in football. But how have things gotten back started for you?
Did you say how our things got started for me?
Yeah, I mean, resuming with training, with games, with the like.
Well, as you know, the pandemic has all taken us by storm, and so football has resumed. And for me, as an assessor, sometimes I do assessment via the television. I assess looking at the TV virtually, and I have also been to one tournament, which was the recent Flow Cup in Santo Domingo, and before that, I've attended For matter of fact, I was at the Olympic qualifiers in Mexico before, and I've had quite a busy time. I also was at the pre-Gold Cup seminar in Guatemala recently before I went over to the Dominican Republic. So I've been quite busy, and it's not easy because traveling back and forth, having to do all the various COVID testing and all the restrictions. You have to be very careful, and you just have to follow all the protocol that is there set forth by the various bodies. So it's not easy at all.
Yes. Well, we're also joined by Victor Stewart. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon to your guests.
All right. Odette, let's cut to you. You've been quite on the scene for a while. How has this pandemic kind of affected your, I wouldn't say ability to officiate, but your mental preparation for any tournament coming up for you or any tournament that you've been involved in?
Hi,
well, it's a different psyche in totality.
Hold on, Victor. I was speaking with Odette. I'll get back to you in a second, Victor. Go ahead, Odette.
Hi, good evening again, everyone. Well, the pandemic has been really rough in Jamaica. Seems that the football is out for a year and a couple months now. So the only thing I have to be doing is just training. There are no physical games that you can officiate in. So you have to just watch football. We have video clips weekly, so we have to stay mentally prepared with that. But other than that, it's a challenge, because being on the field, it would be better, more practical, and it enables you. So when you get the opportunity to travel, then you'll at least feel and be comfortable in what you're doing. But out for a year and a couple months now, it's difficult. But I had the opportunity recently, about 2 weeks ago, recently, a couple days, I was in the Flow tournament in Santo Domingo, which I officiated 2 games, which I am grateful. I did excellent, seeing that there hasn't been any football in Jamaica for so long. So I think my work rate is high, and I try to stay motivated and focused at the same time.
Yeah, I wanted to congratulate you on that. Going into it, what were your concerns about being out of football for so long and then being thrusted into a competition of a high magnitude right away?
Well, back home, in my training sessions, I try to simulate stuff that I would do on the field of play. And as soon as I get the appointment, then I ask a few of my colleagues to assist me in training, while on the field doing some penalty area drills, some free zone controls. So, when I get the game, it's all come back to me naturally, to just bring out the tasks that I've already knew before.
And Talisha, you send out a lot of training tips and drills for officials to do. Are you getting back kind of video to ensure that they're meeting the requirements that you want them to meet, being that you're not in person with them? You gotta unmute. You gotta unmute.
Normally, yeah, thanks for that. Sorry about that.
No
Normally as
problem.
well, the countries or the MAs have their fitness instructors working with them also. So there is somebody on island that's working with them, and whatever we would have sent out, myself and Alan would have sent to the referees. Of course, we communicate via the platform of Polar Flow, because most of the referees have the Polar Flow, the Polar watches. So the platform of Polar Flow, we are able to see how their training and training load is like. So even though we may not receive videos, for example, we are able to still see, manage, and know their training loads from the Polar Flow platform.
Okay. Victor, are you back on?
Yes,
Can
I
you hear
am.
us? Okay. How has your preparation of getting the folks prepared for international duty, how has that affected you with this pandemic, taking over the world kind of thing?
Okay. It has been a challenge because there were no on-field practical activities. In fact, the match officials were basically on their own with limited supervision. From a technical point of view, we utilize the Zoom platform at the MA level and at the Caribbean level in order to keep the referees updated and aware of situations that is unfolding in other competitions across the globe. And I think this had helped them a lot in their preparation. We are particularly happy for the output of the match officials in tournaments. One that comes to mind immediately is Danian Parchment. His performance at the Olympic qualification in Guadalajara was exceptional. And I can attest to the fact that he did not do any on-field training as such for upward of 1 year, except on his own without any technical instructor present. Games was a no-no for over that period. And so to have participated in the Zoom platform and to have actually gone into the game, it took a lot of mental focus and preparation. And we think that has helped the entire refereeing body thus far. And even with the return of on-field activities, we will continue the Zoom link in order to keep the referees abreast.
Okay. Diane, let me ask you, what are the pluses and minuses of evaluating a team of officials via television or via in person? What are the pluses and minuses of that?
Well, actually, on television, as you know, the television centers around the ball. Unless there's a offside decision or some other event outside, the television would go towards that area. So it's a lot different because you're only centered mainly around the referee. You can see the referee, and it's a different experience than when you actually present at the field. At the field, it gives you an opportunity to see everyone, their movement, and to have a feel of the game. So sometimes when you sit on the television, and you're looking, you can't really have that feel of the game to understand why or why not the referee makes or may not make a decision. So it is better when you're at the field in person to be able to evaluate the referees. And for me, it's a different experience, and the focus has to be there. You have to pay attention to everything that is happening on the television. At the game, it's completely different. So I had to make that adjustment from having to be there face to face to assess referees and all the other things that happens around when a game is actually in progress, in comparison to watching the game on television is as if I'm just reviewing a match, because I would have already had that feeling being there. So when I review the match, it's a difference. I'm now looking for details. Most time when I review a game, I'm actually looking for details and confirmation. But when you're actually looking at the television to assess the whole game of itself, you don't have that human feeling of the game of itself, and why, the atmosphere of the game, things like that could affect the referee or boost the referee's performance. So it's a different experience. But it's something that we all have to be mindful of, and I'm very open-minded. So anything that I have to do that will enhance my game, or situations that I have to assess, I will try to adapt.
Okay, good stuff. Let me ask you, because no matter what, when you blow your whistle or you put up your flag, half of the stadium's for you, the other half is against you. That's just the way the game goes. But knowing that you have an assessor kind of helping you out while giving you tips at the halftime and at the end of the game, how does that affect you? Do you start to, if you felt you made a bad call, are you worried about what they're going to say at the end of the game? Or do you just try to carry on and then deal with that at the end of the game?
Well, when I go to games, I knew that I would have an assessor, so I just know that I have to go on field and just perform and just do what I am required to do. Because you don't go out there and ref for the assessors, you ref based on your knowledge and what the game requires and what the game needs. Because even though the assessors are there at the matches watching, then if the game is televised, then you maybe have more than the assessors at the game. So you just have to go out there, perform, and just give your best shot. They are not allowed to give instructions like at the halftime break. So you know that if you made a mistake in the first half, then you just have to just brush that off and just get up and go again, because you have a next half to complete. So after the game now, then you'll be thinking, I messed up on that first half, but being there thinking about it don't happen already. So you just have to just know that, hey, you messed up, move on from there, get the correction from the assessor, or if you go back to your room and watch the game, and just take your corrections.
Kalisha, let me ask, because we know there are people who are challenged in passing fitness tests, because a lot of times it's a mental thing. And I remember telling you once when you were here that if you told me run around a field 5 times, I couldn't do it, or a track 5 times, I couldn't do it. But if you told me run up and down for 90 minutes, I can do it. How do you work with that, with people who just have that block, that running around a track to make a time, or just doing different things outside the game? How do you work with them to get over that mental part? Because you do the physical part, but it's also a mental challenge as well. Gotta unmute again.
Yeah, if you're while training, if a training is of quality and it follows the process that it should follow, then you are developing a psychological or mental strength as well. Oftentimes we say that the fitness test should be like another training day for us. But if you're training correctly, if you're training using the correct categories or capacities, or if you're doing the correct what is required of you when it comes to, or when it gets to a fitness test, that mental block should not be there. Because as we always tell the referees, that the fitness test, it should be like another training session. At some point in time when you go to train, if you have a sprint day along with a high intensity day, you may do some sprint work or some speed work, and then after you do a high intensity session. The fitness test is something like that as well. You have to train according to what you're going to do, really. And once you are training to referee a football match for 90 minutes plus, then the fitness test should be very easy. It should not be a mental block in any way possible. And oftentimes we say that, like you just said, if I tell you to run up and down for 90 minutes, you think you can do it. But there's also 2 things involved. There's general fitness and there's match fitness.
Yes.
You generally can be fit, but does that mean that you're fit to give the match what it requires? That's another issue as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And Victor, we know that you put in a lot of work, especially with the group here in Bermuda over the years. Where have you seen the progress the last time you saw the local officials in training? Where do you see the most progress being made?
The opportunity that exists for the modern referee now is enormous, and we are quite comfortable with the progress made in terms of the number of match officials from the Caribbean generally who matriculate to CONCACAF and FIFA tournaments. We can, Dan and myself, we can recall the years when there were maybe 2 or 3 people from the Caribbean officiating at the CONCACAF and maybe 1 or 2 at the FIFA level. Now, with these programs that we have been having within the regions, we have seen a massive increase in the number of officials matriculating to these major tournaments across the region. When we have people going to the World Cup under 17, female World Cup, senior and junior, Gold Cup, Olympic qualifiers, Champions League, Scotiabank League, then that is a testimony to the work that has been put in over the years within the region. And kudos to the administrators who organize this program and the instructors and assessors who assist with the referees. So we are quite comfortable with the progress made, and the progress is in that line. The number of match officials matriculating to perform at the highest level available in the region and globally.
Yeah, but we all know that the region will host the World Cup after next year's World Cup, and I know the big thing would be to have as many as possible from the region somehow officiating there. Diane, how do we progress from your standpoint? How do we progress to have as many as we possibly can officiate the 2026 World Cup?
Well, it all has to do with performance. And as Victor mentioned, there are numerous programs that can help these referees. And so in the Caribbean, we have programs that we use to, specifically now in this pandemic, where some countries are still on lockdown or there are a lot of restrictions in terms of training from a technical standpoint. The program that we have, the virtual programs they have once per week, is not ideal, but it has really, really helped them in staying abreast with the laws of the game. And in terms of the World Cup, by the time the World Cup comes around, I'm assuming that a lot of places will be open up because many persons are now being vaccinated, and so many things have changed, and a lot of restrictions have been lifted, and persons are now allowed to go outside and train, maybe in small numbers, but at least they're still allowed to go out and train. And so once we have those programs in place and we have our referees performing as they are performing right now, and as Victor rightly said, we have a lot of referees who have represented us in various competitions within CONCACAF as well as in FIFA. And so we have in CONCACAF, in particularly, I'll stress more the Caribbean, we have referees that have really done well, and Victor has identified Damien as one of the top referees, but we also had Nicholas, who have been to the Club World Championships. And we have Odette and some other referees from around the Caribbean who are candidates for the next female World Cup. And so we are on the right path, and we just need to ensure that we continue to work along with the members association to ensure that referees are given attention, and work with the instructors that they have there, the ME instructors, and to ensure that they are following the guidelines that are set out for a referee in terms of the technical training. And as Kalisha said, there's a program there for their fitness aspect of it. So I think with the next World Cup, we should have from the Caribbean, we're looking forward. It would be exciting for us to have a referee team from the Caribbean. And I think it's reachable. They just have to ensure that we're putting the work that is necessary for us to get there.
Yeah.
Earl, I would like to add to Dan's comment in terms of the focus and looking forward to 2026 within the region. It is absolutely a prime item on our agenda as a region to ensure that we have at least a team of match officials. What we have going on now is the precursor to all of those. She did mention, for example, the female World Cup. All those candidates for the World Cup have already been identified, and they would be participating in numerous tournaments leading up to the World Cup. So what we have ongoing within the region now, the progress that has been made, the tournaments and that has been ongoing that they are participating, the performance adds up and is tabulated and the data is correlated. So it is performance based starting from now, even though this is 2021 and we're looking at 2026. What the match official does between now and then will determine their elevation to the ultimate tournament, which is the Senior World Cup. So the ongoing program now is very, very important in getting those referees to identify the objective and the goal of going to the 2026 World Cup. Apart from the technical and the physical instruction that we gave as instructors, we also have to find ways and means of pointing them in the right direction from a mental perspective, psychologically, because it's not just a matter of say, okay, I want to go to the World Cup. And I'm hoping that come 2025, I'm going to perform in 2025 to go to the World Cup. Hello, no. It's 2021. You have all the opportunity ahead of you. And so unlike past years, we now are pointing the referees in that direction. And we think that will help us immensely in getting referees matriculated to that Senior World Cup.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
But you have to look at it also as like referees are athletes. And normally if you have a track and field athlete or even a football or soccer athlete, we think about the athlete's long-term development. So the long-term goal and the short-term goals and how you work towards the short-term goals and the long-term goals. So you already know that if your plan is to go to 2026 World Cup, for example, you know you're not a part of the team for 2022. So you have to start working from 2022 going forward. And what are the long-term and short-term goals? Because now between 2022, after that World Cup in Qatar, or even 2023 for the ladies, going forward to 26 and 27 now, long-term athletes development, long-term athletes goal. There are now other competitions in between. There's Gold Cup, which is every 2 years, it's in CONCACAF. There is also U15. So if it's a young referee that's coming up, because I know, for example, in Bermuda, Princeton is trying to get some was trying to get some referees to go to U15s because to get them onto the list. For example, that's a long term. That's what he had in his long term. Get them to the U15, get them to the list, and from onto the list now, probably try for them to continue to work to get into a tier 3, a tier 2, a tier 1. All these we have to consider. And athletes do this. Usain Bolt did not just jump up and know that he's going to run. He had to work towards Carifta, World Juniors, World Seniors, Olympics, everything. And it is the same with the referees. They have to perform technically and physically. But in order to do that, to perform technically and physically, as Victor mentioned, the mental capacity must also be strong as well. Because when you feel like giving up, you have to tell yourself, I am not giving up. My goal is to, on the 17 World Cup, on the 20 World Cup, Senior World Cup, for example.
Okay. Odette, I'm going to come to you because when you started officiating, did you see yourself on a list to do a Women's World Cup?
Yes, I see myself there. Why go into something and you don't have a big dream of getting to the top? Then it doesn't make any sense. So from I started this and I find out what it's all about, where it can take you, what are your options and everything that it offers, then right there and then I tell myself, hey, that's my aim, so I'm just going to strive for it.
What has been some of the challenges you faced along the way to this thus far?
Well, challenges. Well, sometimes the field of play, sometimes you don't have the correct field to train on. Then you have to use the road, you have to use dirt field, all these things are challenging at times, because then you have to think about injury that comes, and you maybe don't want to get injured at this specific time because there's something important coming up, but you don't have the resource to use at that time, so you have to know how to gear yourself while training and stuff like that. And then sometimes you have women games, they're not of that high quality in Jamaica. So that's another challenge sometimes. So you have to use the men game now to step up to the plate to know that, hey, you use these men games. So when you go overseas and get those female games, then it's not really big of a challenge for me, So those are the challenges that I have here.
Yeah.
Earl,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
it is amazing that we can produce match officials from the Caribbean. And I say the Caribbean, I mean the entire Caribbean, East, West, North, and South, to perform at the world level and even at the CONCACAF level, given the level of football that is played.
Yes.
One of the things that I have observed with our match officials, and even from Diane days and the other senior referees from those days, the games that are played within the Caribbean region, the challenges that are met out to the referee is no way in comparison to what is on the world stage or even the CONCACAF stage. Yet these referees are able to go out there and perform, and I want to hats off to them. And it must continue. We have seen referees matriculate to the highest level from the region, but it's not a testimony of the games they officiate in. I can tell you a story. In 1998, an assistant referee from Jamaica, Owen Powell, went to France, and the director of refereeing from FIFA at the time, hello, son, do you have professional football in Jamaica? No, sir. Do you have semi-pro football in Jamaica? No, sir. So where the hell do you learn to run line from, son? I mean, with what has helped us well is the availability of the resources in terms of teaching material and the commitment of these match officials. And so when we go out there on the international stage, it's more or less the grit of the Caribbean that is embedded in us, the ability to fight for the ultimate in a competitive sphere. When we have to compete with Europeans and South Americans for a place in the World Cup as a match official, our game level that we are subjected to here is nowhere in comparison to theirs. And even if we come regionally, when we have to compete with the Americans and the Mexicans and the Central Americans, the quality of games these match officials service in their preparation, we are at a great disadvantage. The development of refereeing is parallel to the development of football generally. And if our football in the Caribbean region step up, then I can guarantee you we will have more officials out there. These officials out there who are doing well, they are doing it by dint of grit and determination and high level skilled preparation virtually for the most part and mentally.
Diane, Victor mentioned something just now that I kind of piques my interest a lot because years ago, we didn't have this, I guess, collaboration of training, the coming together of information and so forth. When did that start to change for this region?
Well, as Victor said, the development of football itself had to step up in the region, or have to step up in the region. In some countries, Jamaican football is at a high level, as you know, in comparison to, let's say, Bahamas or maybe Grenada football, because they have a semi-pro team or semi-pro games going on there at the moment. But back then, we didn't have those things. So as the game developed around the world, the game started to also develop in the various MAs. And that stems from the interest of the president of those MAs. It has to do with them because they're the ones who have to support whatever programs that are out there to help football generally develop. And by developing football, then our referees department will also develop or expected to develop. But just adding to something that Victor mentioned about the referees' determination to excel at the highest level. our referees in the region, rightfully, as Victor said, they are at a disadvantage. And so when they have areas for improvement that are pointed out to them, they go back home and they try to work on those areas. Despite the level of football is not the best or in comparison to Mexico and other for instance, Central America or Europe.
Right.
The referees go back and there are certain areas of your game that you have to develop. All right. As referees too, we also have to look at what we can do to help ourselves to elevate, apart from, and try to work with what is before us. As much as we would like to be in a better environment, we also have to be mindful of what is there before us and try to work around it if there are obstacles that can help us to get to the next level. Because even myself as a referee, I didn't have any women's game to referee in my country. I rarely referee women's game. But with the men's game, it's a whole different ball game, right? It's the game is faster, the tackles are harder. There are a lot of different aspects of the men's game in comparison to the women's game. And so you have to make that adjustment in what you want to achieve. And as Odette mentioned earlier, you have your big goal and you have to break them up into small goals and determine what is it that can help you to get to the next level. So as football develop in the region, refereeing also have to develop in the region. And so bit by bit, the refereeing start to develop. And so our referees are now, they're getting more teaching. There are a lot of programs for them to reach to the next level. We have Victor and Dave and the team of us, Kalisha and others. We are working hard for our referees to get them to the next level. And kudos to Victor and Dave in particularly for organizing this training session for referees via the Zoom platform every week. And as an assessor and as an instructor, I have seen a lot of improvement with these referees, despite they have had a year out of active refereeing. But the Zoom sessions kept them mentally prepared and mentally ready. I know it's a big challenge, but I just came from a tournament where these are the same referees that we have worked with over a period of time virtually. And to see them referee the way they did, to see them perform in that manner, it's a great achievement and puts a big smile on my face. And I'm very satisfied in my heart. And I know if we continue to work with these referees, they're going to be the best that they could be.
Definitely. Kalisha, how do you recommend a person who's just starting to get into officiating? Obviously, they're going to be a referee assistant to start off, but how do you recommend they get started fitness-wise to ensure that they gradually improve, especially if the person comes from a sporting background, they've already got kind of a training habit. But how would you get them started?
Anything in life, we talk about principles, and it is the same thing with training. There's principles of training, and we talk about the principles of training. It's progression, adaptations, overload, and the principle of FITT, frequency, intensity, time, and type. Now, if somebody's just coming, just like if I'm now starting a primary school, for example, they're going to assess me to see where I am. Same with fitness. If you're now coming into the field of refereeing or any sport, for example, you must be assessed to see your level of fitness, whether it is your speed, your aerobic capacity, and so forth. From there now, we know exactly how to plan towards progressing to reaching the aim that we want to reach. Obviously, like in any sport, when we speak about periodization and so forth, we talk about pre-season and in-season. And in this case, we can talk about the general preparation and specific preparation. And then you have the competition phases. In the general preparation, we are trying to avoid any sort of hard sprinting on the anaerobic capacity of the body or the system, but try to develop the aerobic capacity of the system, which is that base. So we may start with a lot of low intensity work, jogging, cycling, and so forth to build up that capacity. Your heart, to ensure that your heart can control what is required and send the blood around to your muscles. All this is important. And then you progress. So So this is why assessment is important also, because we need to know the VO max capacity, the VO2 max capacity of an individual before we just tell them, oh, run 15, 15, 75, 25. No, we need to know
Right.
exactly what they're doing. So for example, here I would have had persons come in where our FIFA ARs in Antigua can actually run the World Cup candidate time, 15, 15. But we have had recruits where we had to break down in their first official fitness test, have them run the women's time first, a 17, for example, and then continue to train them so that they can progress, to get to the men's time actually. And then
Right.
we would have had persons where we actually have to develop a test for them separately, where instead of running even the women's time of 17, 18, we may have to put them to run 19 seconds to 75 meters
Right.
as an assessment, as a test, because the fitness levels are different. And you also have to consider the principle of individuality also. Everybody's not the same, and everybody
Yes.
does not come in on the same capacity. So even if somebody comes in who's very much involved in sport, what sport are they involved in? If I have a track and field athlete comes in and he's more long distance runner, okay, we can work with that. But what happened to the speed work now? So the assessment is very important before we just jump and give any sort of work to do.
Okay. All right. Victor, when you guys come to Bermuda, or you go anywhere to do a course, it's generally held over what, a 7-day period. Is that enough time to see improvement, or are you just giving like base, and then when you come back you reassess to see if what you've done or put in place has actually worked?
Okay, I think I missed most of your question, but I have a basic idea. In terms of the input that we administered upon our arrival in Bermuda, course instruction, you're asking, upon return, how do we assess and what do we see in terms of the implementation? But we have spoken about this over the years, both Cranston and myself, and we look at the individuals that we have in the program.
Right.
We have seen progress, for example, at Tashawn Simmons, who have matriculated to the FIFA level, Amari Majors,
Yes.
Clinton, Haywood, among others. So we have seen some progress. One of the stumbling block in the way of the progress to be observed is the ability to perform on the international circuit. Opportunity exists at the under 15 level, and of course, last year was compromised, and this year is also compromised with the pandemic.
Yes.
And so we have not been able to see these people. I am quite confident that at Amari's age, over a period of time, he will matriculate to the FIFA level, and we are quite happy for that. What we are not particularly tickled about is the number of aged individuals who participate in these courses year after year. And we discussed this at the MA level with Cranston and the stakeholders. I personally attended courses that deals with kids between the age of 12 and between age 12 to 20. And as long as he can keep those youngsters within the program, then over time, it's not a one night thing or a 1 week or a drop in the bucket thing. It's a long-term possibilities for Bermuda in particular. What you have now is limited, and so the output, it's difficult to judge apart from the few individuals that we have there. But the youngsters in the system, we are hoping that they can matriculate in the future with constant guidance and encouragement.
Okay. But let me ask you, what is something that has happened in a game that you would probably you've learned from the most, whether it be good or bad, a decision you've made or anything that's happened in a game that is kind of like I said, stuck in your mind?
Earlier, breaking up, I'm not hearing your question clearly. Could you repeat the question again?
I was asking Odette. Go ahead, Odette.
Well, I've faced many challenges while coming up through my referee career. you know. I have good times and I have bad times, you know. But for the bad times that I had, I use those as motivation to elevate myself and move forward, you know, because I don't want to keep bad memories. And then every time I get a game, then those bad memories come along with you,
Mhm.
you know. So it has already happened. So I try not to think about them, but use them as a motivation to go forward.
Mm. And Diane, let me ask you, if you've watched someone not have the best of times out in the middle, or even a team not have the best of times at a game, what are some of the things you try to say to them after the game to kind of get their spirits back up? Because obviously, if they knew in the back of their mind they've messed up on a call or a handful of calls or whatever, they're already got themselves down. What type of person are you as an assessor that kind of gives them the encouragement that they just need to kind of go back and do their homework, kind of thing?
Okay, so first of all, when I'm assigned to a match, I try to make contact with my team
Hmm.
and to let them know that I am not here really as a judge, even though technically I'm here to assess. But I'm here to support them 100%. I know they're the ones out on the field. You know, they have to face the players, they have to face everything that is happening out there. So I am there to support them 100%. And I also let them know that during the game, you will make mistakes because we're humans. Once we're humans, we will make mistakes. And so, what is important for them to understand is that there's certain parts of the field that you have to try to give it your best. Try to be in the correct position and all of that to make the right decision. That's the penalty area. So if the
Mm.
referee should make a mistake on the field, you know, the referee may not necessarily be, and there we have to remember that the referee may be in the best position and still there is a mistake. When we look back at the video, we may see something, right? So
Hmm.
we're there to support the referee. I am there to support the referee, even though when we get to the debrief session, I will let them know, okay, based on what we're seeing now, you know, we can make a few changes to this area or that area so that we don't have a repeat of what happened. But generally, I am there to support the referee, and I try my best to do whatever I can to say. You have to be very careful with the words you choose
Yes.
when you speak to them because they're already down, and so you have to let them know that, you know, it's just part of the game. You will make mistake at some point. Yes, you know, you try your best. You were concentrated until the 90th minute or whatever, and so these mistakes are made, and so we have to just continue to go forward, right? You acknowledge that there was an error in some
Right.
way, and how can we fix these errors is very important. How can we go to the next game not making the same errors that we made in the previous game? And so
Mm.
we help referees. We try to get them to be open-minded to many changes as the laws of the game change so constantly. The referees are pressured now on the field to remember all these different changes last year to this year. And
Yeah.
so I am there as an assessor always to support referees. I'll support the decisions they make on the field of play, and I'll also find solutions and how they can fix those errors for the next match going forward. So I'm always there to support 100% my referees, and they're the ones on the field. They're the ones feeling the pressure, and I try my best to help them to get the best solution to move to the next game.
Mm. Kalisha, can you tell us a bit about your refereeing experience?
My referee training,
Your
I
ref-
didn't hear the last.
your refereeing experience. Did you hear me?
I don't have much of a refereeing experience. Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
So for me, I think I got into the field of refereeing at the age of 18 when I finished college or high school. When I finished high school at 16, that was just nationally because after about 2 or 3 years, I went off to university, and then when I came back from university, I got into conditioning, fitness training, and so forth. And I was still a part of the refereeing group here in Antigua. So I was
Hmm.
using what I would have learned also from university with clubs and with the referees and so forth. Then I got the opportunity to attend the FUT 203 course, which Victor would have spoken about many times. For technical and fitness instructor, I got the opportunity to go for as a fitness instructor, and that's where I started to blossom, of course, with the help of Alan Brown at the time. He was the FIFA instructor at the time, and I would have met him, and he would have spoken to me at the time for the first time, saying, try to motivate me in the sense, because he recognized that I was talented in the area, and so he always kept in contact with me to assist and to show me how certain things are done, and to motivate as well. And I just continued to go up the ladder, of course, with his help, and of course with the recommendation of CONCACAF at the time in 2017 with the director Brian as well. I ended up becoming a FIFA instructor. So my refereeing time was very limited and limited to national, because I did it when I was young, 16, 17, 18, for a few years. I'm still very much involved, knowing the laws of the game, learning to assess as well. I can do all of that and so forth. But my love has been fitness, and fitness is the passport. And that's what we always say. If you're not fit, you're not going to make it. So once you're technically sound and you're fit, you're good. So for me, I see that I'm doing my work. It may be in the background, but I'm getting the work done.
Victor, what one game kind of stands out in your mind when you were officiating?
There are so many. One in particular, Mexico versus Costa Rica in Mexico, in the Jalisco Stadium, a championship final involving both countries. You have players like the Rafa Marquez of this world, part of the Mexican team. It was a tournament that stood out for me in particular, vividly, in terms of the challenges faced in stressful conditions, and to come out on top and to make a name for yourself. That was one of the tournaments in my formative years, having been established on the scene as an international match official. That really set the tone for what took place in my career henceforth.
Right. What were some of those obstacles that were in the way? Obviously, one of the bigger challenges would be the language, wouldn't it?
Yeah, initially I thought the language would have affected me more, but having been among the Spanish-speaking match officials, they were very, very helpful in terms of assisting you in getting to know the situation Spanish, as we call it.
Yes.
Words that are used during the game, and I have acquired a number of those vocabularies that assisted me during my sojourn in the Spanish-speaking country. It has helped a long way based on the input from your colleagues, the help from your colleagues.
Yeah, definitely. Well, then let me ask you: do you see that same challenge, or have you seen that same challenge, especially language? I mean, if you're assigned to do a game, it could be. I mean, if you're down to do a FIFA Women's World Cup, you could do Korea, Belgium or something like that. How do you work that out in your head?
Well, the language barrier is always difficult, but due to how technology is going now, you have certain apps that you can use to know certain terms or terminologies. So what I do, I download a app on my phone, so I using it to study Spanish, and CONCACAF also send a platform for us now to learn Spanish as a second language. So now, as a referee, you have to learn two languages because you already speak English. So now I'm learning Spanish. But if I do get a French team, then I know 1 and 2 words on the field of play that I can use, because I always try to push myself to the limit, as I tell you. So
Right.
I try to know keywords, not in sentences, but, keywords to assist me on the field of play.
Right. Have you had any of those games where in the back of your mind you're saying, I'm not quite sure what's being said, but sometimes when people say stuff, they say it in a tone which you kind of get to understand what they're kind of talking about. Is that right?
Right, exactly. Sometimes they may say something, so I pick out 2 or 3 words from it, and then I put 1 and 2 together,
Yes.
being that smart, and I know exactly what they're talking about. So sometime on the field of play, if I get 2 teams that speak Spanish, and I'll say something in Spanish, and they're like, "Oh, referee, you don't speak Spanish. I'll help you, no problem." So they assist me on the field of play while in those situations sometimes. So it's good.
And have you had any of those games where you're challenged, not just the language, but and just the game kind of gets not out of hand, but kind of rough? Because
No, no.
you do men's games back in Jamaica, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, because football is universal, so once you use the whistle, yellow and red cards, and a few hand signals, then it's clear to everyone, so even if you don't speak the language, then those tools help because football is universal.
Victor, I'm going to come back to you because it's important. How do you identify someone who has the technical ability to grow into tier 2, tier 3, tier 1 official?
It all ends on the field of play during the game, Earl. You start at the very basic level.
Mm-hmm.
The step is the same, from being a entry-level referee to junior football at the age group level, under 12, 14, 15 upward. So you watch the progress of that person. You put a referee in a under 15 game, for example, and it shows requisite knowledge, skills, and importantly, the ability to manage players on the field of play, the ability to manage the event on a whole. You judge them. As assessors, we look for all of those qualities. And so you may move that referee from under 15 to, say, an under 19. And over a period of time, it's progressive. Okay, this referee is showing the requisite skills for advancement. And so if you go along that same pathway, it will take you to the highest level, which is FIFA. And there are different levels of FIFA, as is mentioned earlier in the program: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, etc. You start at TARP, targeted referees, who shows the capacity to perform at the international level. And then you are put in various tiers along the way, and the level of competition that you face. So, for example, a referee doing Caribbean under 17, CONCACAF under 17, under 20 is different from Olympic, which is under 23 and upward, to Nations League, which is Caribbean international tournaments, senior tournament, Scotiabank League, to CONCACAF Champions League, to Gold Cup. Each level you are at, your performance at those levels, if you hit a home run at the Scotiabank League, then your next game may be in the Champions League. You hit a home run in the Champions League, okay, Earl is good enough, so we can put him in the Gold Cup. You hit a home run in the Gold Cup, we put you in the FIFA World Cup qualification, and so on and so forth. So each level you perform, you are observed based on your technical, physical, and management skills, and the ability not only to know the laws of the game, but to interpret and apply within the context of the game, the level of football understanding that you display as a match official. So it's different for everybody, and it is game specific as you go along the way.
Yeah. Diane, as you finished up officiating, was it the love of the game that kept you involved?
I would have to say yes. I really like football. I fell in love with it, and ever since I've been right through. I think I have the knowledge, I have experience that I can give back to the referees. And being an international referee myself, I know what the expectations are, what is required. And so I think that I could have served in that capacity to help to give back to referees and to help referees to grow within my region as well as CONCACAF and beyond CONCACAF, FIFA level. So I was passionate about it. I started to basically study the laws of the game, because you have to, like Victor said, not just knowing the laws, but you have to know to apply it, when to use it, mainly for referees. But in my case, I have to also understand practical refereeing in today's modern football. And so I have to have a very good knowledge base and be able to interpret and to teach referees what is expected of them and how they can move forward, how to apply that law on the field in a practical way. Because even though the laws are there, we can still, there's some situations where even though you might issue a yellow card, you can also use personality to manage. So that's why I said practical. So we have to be practical about the game itself, what the game demands. And for me, giving back is something I love doing, and I will continue to do so until maybe I can't anymore. But this is what I will do.
Okay. Odette, as one of the most recognized persons in the Caribbean when it comes to officiating on the ladies' side, what advice do you have for any young official that wants to or has ambitions to go as far as they possibly can?
Well, my advice is that the road is not easy. Nothing in life is easy. So you have to be motivated, dedicated, and be hardworking at what you do. You know, if you fall, get up, rise again, go again. The road is not narrow and straight all the while. Sometimes you have curves, you have bends, you have bowls, you know, so it's going to be a challenge. But once you're determined enough and you want to reach the top, then keep climbing. Go for it.
Mm. And Kalisha, I'm going to come back to you. What advice do you have for those who have been challenged? Obviously, you guys are doing the with working with the MAs, but what advice do you have for those who have that ambition and have been stalled for now a second year in trying to get even further through the CONCACAF, the FIFA ranking, and all that for officiating?
Well, as Odette says, the road is not going to always be straight and narrow. And if that is the case, where okay, that is just a bump, now is the curve. And what are you going to do? Stand up and look and say, okay, I'm going to turn back now, or we're going to try and climb and get over it. For me, once your mind is towards something that's what you want to do, you have to work hard for it. And there's a saying that says the race is not for the swift, but for those who endure to the end. And that's what refereeing is all about. That's what training is all about. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a process. There are principles you have to follow, and even in the progression stage, you might think it's time for you to progress, but then it's not time. And it could you have to see everything in a positive light. It is not my time. Okay, there's no under 15 this year. You have to think of it positively. Maybe it is not my time as yet. So let's use the next 12 months to continue to train, to get better, to maintain my strengths, but to ensure that I'm improving on my weaknesses. How do you know what your weaknesses are? That's where your fitness instructor in your MA now has to come in with assessing you. Of course, we as FIFA instructors or fitness instructors within the region, Alan and myself, we're there to support the local fitness instructors. We're there to help them, but we are not seeing the referees physically. We can see what is placed on the platform based on your heart rate and your load in training. But who is seeing the referee physically? The local fitness instructor. So we can communicate, and then that's where that person now has to help them and let them understand, okay, this is a stumbling block. What are we going to do? We're going to go over it, we're going to go around it, or we're going to reverse. What do you want to do? Because nothing in life is easy. And if you're determined, if you're dedicated, then you have to push on for your goals and what you want. And of course, you have to set, as I mentioned earlier, long-term and short-term goals. So you know that your goals are on the 15, it is black this year, then I work harder, continue to work so that next year, if there's an opportunity, then I can show everything that I've been doing over the past year. So you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going. There's nothing in life that is easy. And once you love something, as Diane said, you will do everything possible to ensure that you are learning and getting better at the art as well.
Okay. And Diane, I'm going to come to you and ask you what advice would you have for someone who has an ambition to actually become an assessor?
Well, first of all, you have to have a passion and you have to be dedicated. You have to have an open mind. As everything in life, there always changes. And so you have to be able to be that mentor. It's more like a mentor to referees. You have to understand, not just being, you just don't mentor them on, the assessor is not just there to look for referees' faults and all these things. You have to be there to be as a motivator.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many things that ties into being an assessor. It's a long journey. It's a lot of dedication in terms and commitment, because you have to be very much, like I said, your knowledge base of the laws have to be intact. And you also have to be I think for me, you have to be a people's person, because I believe that an assessor has to be able to relate to referees. There are moments in the game when you have to obviously say, okay, we have an error, this is how we fix it. But you must be able to interact with them, make them feel as if, create an environment for them that they're comfortable, and not an environment where they're scared. I know for me personally, my personality as someone I have a serious facial from the outside, I look very serious, and I could be intimidating when people just look at me, because I have a strong personality, and most times they don't understand that the passion I have is for refereeing, is to see improvement, to want improvement of our referees. It's not about me looking for mistakes in referees. So for anyone wanting to be an assessor, they're just gonna have to understand that you have to be dedicated. You have to be able to work with referees, whether depending on it doesn't matter what level they're at. As Kalisha said, you have to start from somewhere, right? And so for that person, they have to understand, look at a lot of games, love the game itself, want to improve, and want to help find ways of helping that referee to improve. Because that's our job. Our job is to help the referee move from where they are to where they should be. And because of that, we have to constantly improve as the game improves in order for us to help that referee. And so anyone out there, I would encourage them to, if they have the dedication, they have the commitment, they have some level of football knowledge, that they can just, come into the system and learn. Once they have that dedication, anything is possible. You can learn the game, you learn how to interact with people, and you learn how to find ways to help the referee get better. And so it's everything, like Odette said earlier, it's the process to everything is always challenges in everything. But once you're dedicated and committed, you can overcome those challenges. You have to find ways in which to do it. And so as an assessor, I enjoy my work because I have an opportunity to interact with the referees. And so I think that anyone who has a football knowledge, or even if they don't, they can still learn and become a referee assessor.
Okay. And Victor, for you, what advice would you have for anyone that wanted to get involved in progressing from the start?
Okay, to begin with, Earl, refereeing by itself is an exercise in human relationship. And both Kelisha and Diane speaks to it eloquently. You have to have that passion to help people. You have to have that passion for the game, for the upliftment of the game. And you must be able to relate to people. If I speak from my seat as a teacher, even though retired from the classroom, I find that in my experience, the better relationship you have with the students is the greater the output. So apart from your personal knowledge, and of course you have to have the knowledge base as an instructor assessor to be able to do so. But not everybody who have the knowledge is able to pass on that knowledge effectively so that the students can learn. And students in this case mean the referees. The way you relate to the referees is very important. So my advice to people who want to become an assessor, you need to have a love for the game. You need to have a good human relationship, the ability to accept criticism the ability to pass on instruction, and the ability to understand how each individual operates in order to maximize the potential of those individuals. It's an activity in human relationship. From refereeing, assessment, instruction, everything has to do with the human factor. So you must be a humanitarian in order to function in the field of football, refereeing.
Okay. We're joined by the chairman or the head of referees for Bermuda, Mr. Cranston Williams. Mr. Williams, we've been chatting here, gaining some valuable knowledge from these four. Do you have anything to add this evening?
No, I just came on to say thank you to everyone for coming on the show, and also to Kelisha, Victor, Odette, and Diane, especially the ladies, for making history. That was a proud moment for me, as knowing that they've been regular guests and they've been very supportive of the Bermuda Football Association Referees Committee. So I had to come on and just say thank you, and thank you.
Okay.
Big up
And
yourself,
I want to say thank you to you all for coming on and joining us here. And I want to wish you well in the next months, years, and keep us informed on what's happening. Odette, all the best. We'll be watching. Keep smiling. Yeah, that's the smile right there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Folks, enjoy your night.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hi, Diane. Hi, Kelisha.